The sound began as a sharp hiss, then erupted into a violent, rhythmic thumping behind the kitchen wall. Before Mark could reach the doorway, a spray of water punched through the drywall, arching high toward the ceiling. It hit the plaster with the force of a fire hose, scattering white debris across the counter. Gravity took over instantly. The water cascaded down the cabinets, pooling rapidly on the hardwood floor. Each second brought a new layer of sound, the splash of droplets hitting the floor, the gurgle of water rushing into the gaps between the floorboards, and the steady, heavy drumming against the ceiling. Mark stepped into the room, his boots sliding on the slick surface. The water was already inches deep near the baseboards. It moved toward the kitchen island, creeping across the floor like a dark, expanding stain. The air grew heavy with the smell of damp wood and wet plaster. He watched a stream of water track toward the wall outlets, sparking once before the circuit cut out. The kitchen plunged into shadows, leaving only the sound of the relentless, uncontrolled spray. The floor was warping, the pressure was rising, and the house was under siege from the inside out. Mark did not look back. He turned on his heel and sprinted out of the kitchen, his feet slapping hard against the wet floor. The roar of the water followed him, a relentless, deafening sound that seemed to chase him down the hallway. He reached the utility room and shoved the door open with his shoulder. His eyes scanned the shelves, catching the glint of a steel toolbox, but he did not stop. He knew a wrench would take too long to find, too long to adjust. He lunged for the back corner of the room, near the foundation wall where the main line entered the house. The pipes rattled in the ceiling above him, shuddering under the immense pressure. He dropped to his knees, his hands sweeping across the cold concrete floor, feeling for the cold metal of the shut-off lever. The drywall in the next room groaned, a sickening sound of saturated wood losing its structural integrity. He found it. The lever was tucked behind a bundle of copper pipes, partially hidden in the shadows. He reached out, his fingers brushing the cool, smooth surface of the handle. The house held its breath. He grabbed the lever, his pulse hammering against his ribs, and prepared to force the flow to stop. Mark tightened his grip. The metal was cold, biting into his palm. He braced his feet against the concrete foundation and pulled. The lever did not budge. It was locked tight by years of mineral buildup and disuse. He shifted his stance, his muscles coiling, and threw his entire weight into the rotation. A sharp metallic groan echoed through the utility room as the resistance broke. He shoved the handle clockwise, feeling the internal mechanism grate against the pressure. Slowly, the lever moved. 1 inch, 2. The roar from the kitchen walls began to waver, turning into a stuttering, uneven hiss. He pushed harder, grit-toothed, until the lever slammed into the stop position. The house went silent. The violent drumming against the ceiling vanished. The only sound left was the slow, rhythmic drip of water falling from the kitchen drywall onto the hardwood. Mark held his position, chest heaving, his hands still locked onto the cold metal. He waited for a second, then a third, listening for any sign of movement within the pipes. Nothing. The pressure had been neutralized. He exhaled a long, steady breath, the tension draining from his shoulders as the reality of the silence set in. The flood had been cut off at the source, saving the structure from total saturation. Mark pulled a heavy towel from the shelf, his movements slow and deliberate. He walked back into the kitchen, the hardwood floor slick and warping under his boots. He pressed the fabric into the pool in water, wringing it out into a bucket until his hands ached. The damage was significant, but the structure remained standing. He looked at the ceiling, then back at the utility room door, considering the narrow margin between a minor repair and a total loss. This simple turn of a lever had changed the outcome. He realized then that the most complex disasters often have the most straightforward solutions, provided one knows where to look. Emergencies never announce themselves. They arrive in the quietest hours of the day or the middle of the night, catching everyone off guard. Knowing the exact location of that main shutoff valve is not just a convenience. It is the single most critical step in protecting a property. A few seconds of preparation today prevents thousands of dollars in damage tomorrow. He stood up, the damp towel heavy in his hands, and marked the memory of the valve's location firmly in his mind. This was no longer just a house. It was a lesson in active vigilance, proving that the difference between a disaster and a manageable inconvenience is simply knowing the path to the source. Maintenance is the final step in the chain of protection. Test your main shutoff valve twice a year to ensure it stays functional and responsive to your touch. A valve that is frozen by time or corrosion is as good as no valve at all when the pipes finally give way. If you find yourself struggling with a stubborn mechanism or a leak that defies your best efforts, you must recognize the threshold where professional intervention becomes essential. For residents across San Francisco, Quality Plumbing and Drains stands as the primary resource for these critical moments. Their expert team handles the complications that homeowners cannot manage alone. Keep their contact information accessible at all times. Save the number 415-466-8440 directly into your phone today. Do not wait for a pipe to burst before making the connection. Quick action secures your property, but having professional support on speed dial ensures that even the most severe emergencies remain manageable. Your home is a significant investment, protected by knowing your equipment and knowing exactly who to call when the situation escalates beyond your control. Take that single minute to update your contacts now. It is the most reliable insurance you can secure for your household's safety and peace of mind.